Welcome back, everybody, to the Cine-Men podcast. We are going to be talking about the 1973 George Lucas sophomore film, American Graffiti.
This film was one of the more classic or classic like film nerd films that I got turned on to because I started digging into movies George Lucas made that wasn't Star Wars. Because I knew he had like I'd heard from other people like 15, 20 years ago before I had long before I had met you and watched films critically that he made a couple of films before Star Wars. I was like, couple, that's it. Yeah, one of them's science fiction, and one of them has nothing to do with science fiction.
And there's a story behind that, and we will get into that as we talk about the movie. So,
and there's even supposed lore Star Wars related to this, which I think is fun. Specifically, a character name. So yes, we will get to that in later stages. Our theme for American Graffiti is going to be nostalgia, but also specifically in nostalgia in the frame of honesty. And in this specific film, we have the last summer for three. Well, there's more than three characters, but the three main male characters in this film. And there's even lore that Kurt, Steve, and Toad or Terry were written by George Lucas as the three different stages of his life, but as three completely different characters in one summer of a film. And also I thought it was funny that Ron Howard still sounds exactly like Ron Howard in every last freaking role he ever has. Like his voice is so specific.
probably not
But
Opie,
also,
but I haven't seen that in a long time.
Well, I haven't either. In the credits, do you see he's Ronnie Howard?
Ronnie Howard, yep.
Instead of Ron Howard.
Well, this is in between the Andy Griffith Show and Happy Days, so he hasn't gone on to Happy Days yet.
He hasn't gone on to Happy Days, and this film has been somewhat credited with even starting some of those characters. Specifically, Laverne and Shirley actress was a major character in American Graffiti as Ron Howard's or as Steve's girlfriend.
So I wanted to talk about
Jesus.
I wanted to talk about nostalgia and honesty for a few reasons. One is this movie, you know, in addition to the name, which is even kind of like nostalgic, right? Even at the time, I'm sure it was nostalgic. And you mentioned that, you know, this is largely based on George Lucas's, thematically based on George Lucas's own teenage years. He absolutely has said, you know, like that the idea of drag racing and car culture was what he was interested in. He got in a bad car accident, and that is when he kind of said, okay, I need to like lay off that. And then he got into filmmaking right before college. He got into this bad accident, and he realized that if he was to race and stuff, it would kill him if he was to, you know. And so then he went and got into filmmaking, went to, you know, film school. And in that process of doing that, you know, like he has revisited this sense of car guyness directly in this. Now, I have not seen THX 1138, which is his premiere, his film feature premiere, and he made a short of it. I haven't seen it, so I don't know if there's any correlations in there. But obviously, this movie is a car movie. Like,
you mean besides Richard Dreyfuss being in it?
Huh?
Richard Dreyfuss was also in THX 1138.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And then But like but I'm saying there's no other core. I don't know of any corollaries to driving culture, which also,
Not
I mean,
no, no, not really. You're right.
driving culture in car culture in the way that we think about it, especially in the way it's portrayed in this movie, is almost exclusively an American thing, right? It's the most
Oh
American
yeah,
thing. I know that we have like the Le Mans and Formula One outside the US, but like when you think about just like drag race culture and all these other things, it is American. And so like calling it American Graffiti is smart in that way. But you also have, so he goes on to do that. Star Wars, your two main characters are pilots and are really, their pilot prowess is a major point of interest in both characters, at least in the first one. Luke pretty quickly drops his pilot, like he pilots, but it's not like something he brags about after the first movie. But
yeah,
like, you know, well, we used to shoot womp rats back in, like it is, even in that way, it is the sci-fi version of this same kind of like, this is what I'm interested in.
yeah. The
And
the fixation and
yeah.
the
And then you get into pod racing.
true. Well,
So like this
the
is,
car culture is very much specifically an American thing because out during the birth years of our country as an industrial nation, the car became such a part of the identity not only of our country but of affluence, success, and then even freedom because we had such a large sprawling bunch of land to cover that the vehicle not only became a function of transportation but became its own like leisure activity. And that is quintessentially American that a car is a leisure activity. My wife did watch this one with me as well. She's like, look at them. They're just like driving this close to each other
they're talking
on
while driving,
and
which,
talking while driving on one direction, on two directional streets, like just and leaning out of their cars and having casual conversations. Like it is very much an American thing. So despite I am not exactly feeling patriotic this weekend, and many people with my stance on politics and society are not as well, this was kind of unintentionally a very American film. And the characters' timelines,
but again, back to honesty, it's an honestly American film, and we will get to that
yes.
as we talk about the plot and the ending. um
Oh, very true. So the film really has two timelines, and it's the character's timeline and the audience's timeline. So the characters experience like this one last night before we all go away and go on to our adult lives after high school. And then the audience has this timeline, like you just mentioned, looking back at a version of America that even now and even in the 70s already feels foreign in the past. Not foreign. I mean, already feels in the past.
yeah, so I will say, because we're talking about nostalgia and honesty, and we will get into plot specifics in another section. But the thing that thought about, so I think it wasn't around in 1962, so I don't know. But I think this is a very honest.
You
Two things.
sure?
One is the political side, or
Yeah.
the like American culture in that way, political
Yeah.
side, and then there is the like teenagers being teenagers about to go on the precipice of adulthood
Mhm.
side. And I will say that from that side of things, I was like, I didn't do this exact thing, obviously, but I like, as someone who now was a 17-18 year old about to go off to college, there the summer before college there was a lot of like, we don't have a great place to hang out, so we drive around and we do, there
Mhm.
is that culture, and that was something that was very relatable to me. Like I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like we didn't listen to this, we didn't, but we didn't have Wolfman Jack, but we had Ramiro and Pebbles, and we had uh and there was those things, touchstones that you can, even if that specific doesn't get you, it gets you that way.
Yeah.
So that was real honestly, I have to imagine that George Lucas and the other two writers were like, this is the time when we became set, when we turned 17, 18. This is, we know this exact experience. And then there is the larger, broader culture thing, which we see bits and pieces of, which is, um, there is at the end of the movie, and this is why I say, like, it was, I think that there's a lot of the ugliness of it that is not masked in the movie. So like there is that, like,
Yeah, okay.
there's the charmingness of it, like when he's trying to get the alcohol, there's the charmingness of it, but then he gets ripped off by one guy, and then the other guy does get him the alcohol, but he is robbing the place, and like, so there is that, like,
And he ripped off the kid again. He ripped off Toad a second time, sort of, because he was about to maybe get him in trouble.
oh yeah.
Like if Toad hung
But
around, like he would have been the guy would have recognized him.
but then and this is a 50 something year old movie, so please bear with us on spoilers. The end credits. So the way this movie ends is, before you get to that end, the, like, the thing
I
we've
think it
seen
was unexpected for the audiences. I
well,
really can't see an audience in this time frame expecting that that's what was
so
about to happen.
so this movie does the thing that, so many movies have, and this is probably the first one that kind of did it, right? But like the Breakfast Club thing of, like, Bender became this, and and he's now a senator or whatever. This movie does that, but up until the ending, like, we see, all their journeys have, done what they did over the course of the night, and Richard Dreyfuss flies off to go to college, and everyone's in a good place. And then the end credits of the, like, John, who was the kind of rebel without a cause, but like with a heart of gold kind of guy, uh, gets killed in Vietnam, and this person goes MIA in Vietnam, and
Hmm.
Richie doesn't really do it. I know his name's not Richie; it's Steven. I was thinking of Ron Howard as Richie Cunningham. Um, is he is a bank manager in his town, even though he's the one who
Uh
went
huh.
dreamed, and then the only one who kind of lives like any kind of life that they were hoping, thinking about in any way, um is Kurt, played by Richard Dreyfuss, goes to Canada and lives in Canada and becomes a writer. Now, the lives in
Yep.
Canada part, is that a draft dodge move? Because I couldn't remember. I knew there was some Vietnam stuff in this movie. I remembered that. I couldn't remember,
Yeah, there
and
was. Yeah.
I didn't remember how, like, on the wire it was, like at the last second it was, but I could remember that. So Kurt's experience the whole movie of, like, not knowing if he's going away. I'm like, did his draft number come up and he's not telling anybody? That's what I thought was
Yeah.
going on for the whole movie,
Oh.
and
Oh, I didn't think about that.
that's what I thought was going
Because
on.
every time they asked him, "Where are you going?" I don't know.
But you
Like it was
can
the same line. Well, when are you leaving? I don't know.
now, most people who grew up at this time would know better, but I think if your draft name number came up but you were enrolled in college, you could get out of it. But maybe he wasn't trying to get out of it, so I couldn't
Good
remember
point. Yeah.
exactly what, like, I was like, I know there's something to do with Vietnam that's going to come up at the end. I
Hmm.
didn't remember that it was like literally the postscript. um
Right.
I didn't remember it was just that detail. So that is an interesting dynamic of, like, the movie doesn't, and that probably feels like what it was for George Lucas. Like, you think about how we think about people we know from high school, or we knew in high school, that we don't necessarily talk to anymore. You're like, oh, I heard that Bob is he's a almost a VP at this company, or Tim's got 5 kids, but like we don't talk to. I mean, it's different because of social media. We know a little more, but like you hear in passing, and those captions are what you would hear in passing. Like, oh yeah,
No, very
John
true.
died in Vietnam, and I'm sure that, like, for someone of George Lucas's age, they knew people who, like, oh, what happened to this guy who I
No,
was friends with, but I never
100%.
didn't keep up with. Oh, he died in Vietnam. oh, like I'm sure those things happen. So that's why I
No,
say nostalgia and honesty, because there is so much of that nostalgia in the good sense of it, but there is an honesty to it that I think could easily have gotten whitewashed and doesn't.
I like that the writers kept that honesty there. And you're right. There is no genuine attempt to try to only make this a big glowy hug for the audience and then have you leave like, oh, it was so much better back then. Like that's not what this is attempting. And I mean, do you think that in the early 70s, a movie made about the early 60s, do you think that this movie is nostalgic for the actual past or nostalgic for the feeling of being young?
Okay, so two things. I want to interject. Okay, I will answer your question, but give me a sec. I googled the definition of nostalgia. Now, the way that we use nostalgia colloquially is a yearning for the past. This is this is the definition according to Google's AI overview, which I fucking hate. But okay, I'll just read the Merriam-Webster definition better. That's better. A sad pleasure experienced in recalling what no longer exists. A wistful or sentimental yearning for or return to the some real or romanticized past period, some irrevocable past condition or setting. So that sad pleasure. So we think about it as like, oh, I wish that, but like there is also the like the sadness. I think also in this way comes from the realism that the the realistic portrayal of like I think that like yeah, going on riding around town on your last night in your hometown and hanging out with your boys and seeing your girlfriend and you know making out down at the
At the lake.
the lake or whatever. I'm sure that is like th- there is a desire to go back to that, but there's uncertainty within every single character. There's like that we see in the moment, and I'm sure that there. So that's the honesty too. Is like like Steve doesn't know. Like he think at the beginning of the movie, he is certain. He's like, I'm going off to college. We should start seeing other people, just because like how
I
can you know what
love that he tried to pull that.
how can you
Yeah.
know what you want and if you haven't had anything else and blah 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 and and Richard Dreyfuss being like I don't know what's maybe I just hang out here and then they all have that like a set and then they're kind of flip flopping and the only those two have the flip flop and then Toad Toad has the like I'm just trying to keep up with everybody else kind of thing.
Yeah, Toad had keeping up with the Hendersons, but he was thrust into it and just keeps living. He keeps faking it till he makes it the entire film.
Right. And then you got John who everyone else kind of is like trying to emulate him and he's like why? Like I'm getting tired of this. Like I mean, he sounds there's several times throughout the movie where he just sounds like he's kind of like okay, I'm ready to be done with what you all think I am. And like obviously he wants
Well,
a
he
girl,
he 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 speaks to it somewhat. He he he. So he's even nostalgic for that good bad guy kind of role that I think the way that they designed Milner's costuming and character and wrote his roles, Paul Lamont nailed nailed that ability to foster a youngin, but at the same time still be known as a bad guy. Because even when Carol got in the car, he's even like, if I get caught with you in here, my name is Mud. and oh my god, am I babysitting? You know, there was absolutely this like, I'm too cool for this. But then in that scene where he's in the junkyard with her, he's even being nostalgic for something else, for like a vehicle that crashed or someone that died racing, or even being like, well, you don't want to emulate me, I'm no great shakes. Like, he really he personifies that. And I even remember when he's like, you're going to the freshman hop? What are you doing? Who wants to go there? Like, he's even trying to push away his past.
There is a sense of like there is an aimlessness to it, and to the driving, and I think that the aimlessness embodies what they are, but that doesn't mean they don't get somewhere. Because
Okay,
I
fair.
think by the end of the movie, I think everyone is somewhere different than they started. They just aren't where they intended. And so, like,
Okay. So they're cruising, but misguidedly.
yeah, they're or
They're
not
not
even
cruising in circles. Like, it's not they ended up back where they started. They're going
yeah,
somewhere. It's
right.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
It's not even necessarily misguided. I would say it's just more just like they're kind of letting the wind take them. Like, like Kurt is, doesn't know
Well,
where
he has
he's
a fear
going.
of leaving.
He just wants to kind of hang out there, and then
Yeah.
and like and he's kind of like, why do we got to go? And then he sees Suzanne Summers, and he's like, whoa, take a right, and he has a direction, and then he gets taken on this like this wild adventure with the pharaohs, or the pharaohs as they keep calling themselves, and then you've got Toad.
Milner
Toad
is,
is
yeah. So
Toad's a junior and about to be a senior in high school, and he's like given like custody of the car, and he's like, I'm so excited, I get to be a senior, I get to be the big dog. And we see him kind of like trying to be the big
he
dog,
has no business like being any of that.
right? But then at the end he kind of is. Like, she's like,
No,
yeah,
no,
we got into a fight
very
and we
true.
did, we did all these fun
Oh,
things. And
dude, that is so cute when when she's like, "You got a scooter? That's almost a motorcycle.
yeah,
We should hang out again sometime."
yeah. And then you got Steve, who's like, I'm going off to be a big, and but like, so there's the dynamics as far as what their life goals are, but the cars represent that to some extent, because it is this crisscrossing driving around, and oh man, I want to do this, and oh man, I'm driving alongside, and I'm hanging out. Milner is a year or two older than even the seniors that just graduated, because they're like, you're gonna hang out like Milner, like that's what he says to him. And so Milner is driving, and he sees a girl who's probably like a senior roughly in high school, and he's like, hey, if he's 18, 19, she's 17, whatever, and 17, 18, and he's like, hey, why don't you come over? And she's like, I'm going steady. And he goes, any girl in the car will do,
I love that.
essentially.
Yeah, any
and
girl.
and
She's like,
so they give him a kid, and he's literally been, he's been hanging out with these younger kids than him, refusing to move on, because he's hanging out with Steve and Toad and Kurt.
Kurt.
And
Yeah,
so he gets given a literal little girl, like 14-year-old, probably a
yeah.
freshman or even an eighth grader, potentially, to hang out with. And he's like, oh, and it puts it
Well,
into
his
perspective.
nostalgia is a prison.
Right. Well, but it puts it. It's not even that his nostalgia, because it's more like he's been holding on to it too long,
Well,
and
no,
it's like,
well, no, that's why it's a prison. So
no, but that's,
he's
yeah,
captive in his own nostalgia that
right.
has caused him not to be
But
able to
it's
grow and
no, it is a
leave.
prison, but it's not nostalgia. It's arrested development, and being the, the
Okay.
juxtaposition of, okay, it's not sad when I'm hanging out with younger guys and being their role model, but when all of a sudden I'm trying to get with
Oh, that
girls,
is
and I'm
more than
thrown this
nostalgia. You're right.
this like extreme version of that. I also I watched it while Sarah was playing video games and Logan was playing video games, and I'm watching on my phone, and it's PG, right? And I'm watching on my phone, and Sarah hears the girl Mackenzie Phillips saying like, "Are you gonna rape me?" And she's like, "Is that a boy or like?" And I'm like, "No, it's a 14-year-old girl and who just got in the car."
Dude,
She's like, "You wanted to
I
show this movie to
love
Logan?" I'm
how
like, "It's PG."
yeah, I love how badass she is to Milner. Like the
Yes,
shit she says to Milner is freaking
but
hilarious.
but
I'm
here's
gonna
the
say
thing that
you raped me. It's like she's so on point with him, and he just like goes into his shell, like, oh shit, she really just said that.
if I'm being honest, their dynamic is my favorite dynamic in the whole movie, though.
It is
I
absolutely.
love how he's at first he's annoyed, like the way you would be having to take around a kid, your own kid sister or whatever, and
Yeah.
then you know they have that fun part where the balloon comes, and I think the water balloon is like the change because he's still trying to like he sees the girls, he's like yeah yeah, and then they water balloon him, when technically they hit her and they start laughing and they shaving cream the car and drive
Yep.
off, and that's where things change, and I love when he is finally like he wants to take her home the whole night, and he finally is like, I
Yeah.
can't control myself. I want you so bad.
I
And she's
love that
like,
where he's like,
he calls her
I
bluff on
need
being
you. Yeah.
he calls her bluff on being like cool to hang out with an older guy, and so he and he's like, I need
I want
you,
to take you home. What's your address?
and he goes, well, I can't take you home because you won't give me your address, and if I can't take you home, I have to have you. And she's like, my address is blah 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 blah, and he's like, great, let's go.
She says it right away. Like,
It's it like their dynamic is my favorite in the whole movie. I think
yeah.
it's so because I could see it happening, right? I could
Oh yeah.
absolutely see that happening. It's such a great moment there. And I loved this movie too. I at the beginning of the movie I was like, am I going to like this? I don't remember. It's, there is an aimlessness at the beginning where you're like, is this just going to be a collection of stories or vignettes
Okay. Yeah.
the way that like even though we hated the movie, the collection of vignettes of A Christmas Story. I'm like, is it going to just be that, and not really a real movie? But it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has an arc. It has it's
It
cohesive.
does.
It comes together. It weaves in and out. So it is not what I thought it was going to be at the beginning, which is when they first separate. I'm like, oh, we're just going to watch 4 individual series of vignettes. But there is a much stronger story to it than that, and
So the movie's structured around one night, which gives it urgency. Like, it has to end. Oh, and by the way, early George Lucas problems. When Toad and the blonde go to make out by the river, there is some inconsistency that drives me nuts with the lighting. Like, there'll be times it's super dark in the car and it's obvious it's very late at night or early in the morning. And then they'll be out of the car and it's like dawn. But then they'll
there
get back in the car and it's dark again. I'm like,
the
so
lighting is why is in this movie is why it does not have a higher rating when we get to my quality
yeah,
rating.
same.
It is
It's
exclusively the
poor.
lighting.
Yeah, yeah, it's poor. I noticed it. I picked it out too. Look at you
Even like
training me up.
this movie is 90% at night, and the it's so weird. The worst lit scene is when they are on the tarmac in the daytime the next morning. I'm like, how did you? I'm like, the lighting's inconsistent throughout, but the lighting's not terrible during the night scenes. It's just harder, right? And they were on a very low budget, blah blah blah. I'm like, how did you get the lighting this bad? Like like when you see old film and you see the trailer and you're like, that they got like a crappy cut of the footage or a crappy thing for the trailer, because the trailer always looks like less cleaned
produced.
up.
Yeah.
Like from the 50s, 60s, it always looks worse than the actual footage that's in the
grainy
movie.
And like the motion's choppy. Yeah.
Yeah. The footage in that scene, I was like, is that like like, oh, this is what would have been in the trailer, but they didn't clean it up for the movie kind of footage. Like, not that that scene would be in the
Okay.
in the trailer, but
So,
like
so,
that
so
is
you're
that
talking about the final scene when they put him on the plane?
right when they're at the like
So cross cutting between the characters makes this place feel alive. And so what I liked about the writing and the pacing is there wasn't this like looming anxiety that something was going to end or happen the way Tick Tick Boom was. There wasn't this like frantic pace where stuff is always having to go on. You knew it was all one night, and it was really framed that way because hell, it starts at night basically. But the cutting between really gave pace without the pace being the notion that it's only one night. And this was one of my theme ideas, and it was diegetic sound because I absolutely love Wolfman Jack narrating sort of
yeah
the night
it
and having that move in and out of in scene and out of scene usages of him as a character until you meet him as a character. And he even tries to misdirect Kurt that he is the character.
yeah
And then
I
Kurt sees him as he's leaving. Yeah, God, this is Wolfman Jack. Like then it's obvious that's
this is a
him.
good that's a good Wolfman Jack impression.
Thanks. So there's like that even feels like a memory because I mean, you even mentioned DJs from from your high school years. Like I remember all of them, and I remember them so much. After I got back from my failed stint at college, I went to be one, and I was one at the same station that I listened to. So I didn't have nostalgia for wanting to be on the radio. I just wanted to be on the radio because voices are fun for me and playing music is hugely fun for me. So I was like, well, that sounds like a fun job. And it's
Wolfman
actually one of
Jack
the things that brought me to North Carolina.
Wolfman Jack is George Lucas got him because he was the guy they all listened to when George Lucas was a 17-year-old, and he was like, oh, if he's still doing it, I'm gonna go, because he didn't live in Modesto anymore or whatever. I think he was
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Modesto.
I was about to say that's another Lucas callback is that not only was Wolfman Jack a real DJ, Robert Weston Smith is his real name, um, and he was actually born in North Carolina or died, sorry, in North Carolina. He was born in Brooklyn. Um, he he framed so much of this movie around where he grew up. Like, yeah, there's the idea that those three characters, the three main male characters, are three stages of his life, but even like the way this place looks was intentional for George Lucas as a youngin, and the music makes it feel continuous. The way it strings the location and the characters together, and I even think that the lack of a single plot is kind of part of the point of this film, and that being young often feels very big in the moment without any of the hindsight because you don't have anything to look back with. So I really think that added to that like fun pacing that I was mentioning, even though again, it's only one night, and even though it's bad lighting and scene consistency, you can tell it's gonna be morning at some point. And the timeline. So this is something I'm starting to notice watching films critically with you as part of Cine-Men. Is is this is this an example of a film not trying to stretch time? So we've watched films on Cine-Men where it's clear it's a real time frame, but then there are sections where it's stretched long and then parts where it moves very fast. But then by the end of it, there's no way that time really passed this slowly or this quickly. This film genuinely feels, because it is only an hour and something long, right? Clearly, nighttime is longer than that. But to me, there was never really a moment that felt like they stretched one part of night out or they sped up one part of early morning. Like it never felt like that. It felt like it hit relatively normal stations in time as it went on. And I'm curious if you see it the same, that it didn't seem to
Yeah.
rush or drag certain sections of the night. And I liked that because it kept the pace going. The soundtrack as emotional, like ricks that build up and weave it all together. I like the cast. Even though a lot of these actors weren't big deals yet, they became big deals after this for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like
It's a
Richard
stacked.
Dreyfuss was in Jaws,
Well,
you know?
and
Like,
the crew on the movie
oh
is pretty
yeah.
big too. I think it's is it Walter Murch that edited. Um, it's you've got
Verno. We got Verna Fields
okay
and Marsha Lucas for our
Marshall Lucas
editors.
who
Yep.
goes on to win an Oscar for editing Star Wars.
Well, yeah, and when you were talking about the writers earlier,
Gloria
Willard
Katz and
Hyuk and Gloria
Willard Huck.
Katz, Indiana Jones, American Graffiti, Mission of Evil, Howard the Duck. Like
Okay,
these
well,
these these people pretty much did the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They pretty much all did the same 8 films together.
yeah.
Gloria and Willard did. Some parts of this film felt loose or a little repetitive, not in a way that distracted or derailed, but in a way that I just kind of noticed and made a note of, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Some character beats are stronger than others.
Yep.
For example, even though I think Toad is endearing, his dragged out a little bit more than I wanted.
Toad provides the most comedic relief, but I do think that like we could have
But
used
he's
less of
he's
it.
nowhere near funny to me.
No, it's not him that's funny. It's the situations.
Well,
Like
okay.
when the guy
Well,
tosses him the
sort
bottle
of.
and the other guy comes out and starts shooting. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. So okay, so Toad is a little closer to what I might have been in high
Oh, I'm
school.
aware.
Fuck off. So so
I'm I'm
there's
somewhere between Toad and Richie Cunningham in this. I think.
okay, fair. Oh, you fortunate kid. So it wasn't like I was too close to home with Toad. It was just like so much of it. I'm like, yeah, of course he's going to try to impress the girl. Yes, of course he's way out of his league. Yes, of course he just has a Vespa that he crashed in the first minute of the damn of the freaking movie. What?
That was real. That really happened. And George
He really
Lucas,
crashed his Vespa like that? Oh, that's
he
great.
really crashed it, and they were like, "That works so much for the character. Like he didn't know how
Leave
to
it in.
ride the Vespa. Leave it in."
So the women, the other okay, the other big thing, and I know saying this could be better was just so many of these things are just I noticed, not I think if they were improved, it would greatly improve the film. But the women, the leading role women can sometimes just feel more like mirrors of the dude characters more than they are their own woman. Like the only person that wasn't a mirror was Cindy Williams.
I don't think that was there. I think that the other three women or the other two women are good. Like
No,
was it
sorry, not Cindy,
Carol?
Mackenzie. Mackenzie. That's what I meant. Mackenzie
Ca-
is the only one that's not really a mirror.
Carol, I think is a great character. I think
Yes.
Cindy Williams is defined enough and has strong enough beliefs that she is a mirror
Well,
to
she
what
flips. Her anger that he's leaving and tried to literally get a hall pass out of her for
yeah
like a few months flips completely to the point that she's like sad and longing for her boyfriend.
It's no, no. She is. I think she. As soon as he says it, she's like, "Yeah,
Well,
that's
no,
a
no,
good idea."
okay,
And it's like
right.
that
She
passive
gets mad and she
aggressive.
gets in. Yeah, she gets indignant and
She
passive aggressive.
she
But
kind of
then
goes through the
later on,
stages of
after they're
grief almost of it.
sorry. When I say flip, that's more what I mean. Is she eventually feels that he's really gonna go away? Oh no, he's really gonna do this. He's really gonna make out with someone else and possibly have sex with someone else for the first
Yeah.
time. I need to try to be that person.
No, I don't
But
think
then
that's what
she's
she's.
mad
I
that he
don't
does.
think that's what she's doing. This is
Oh,
what I
okay.
think she's doing. I think because she from the very moment she gets in the car with Harrison Ford, she is like, "Don't talk. We're just gonna ride around." And
She's
I
doing
think
it to hope he sees it. She's
she's
really
do,
trying to rub it in him. Yeah.
yeah, she that right. She's not trying to be who he wants. She's trying to spite him, which is another part of that same
Yeah.
like
Okay.
process that she's going through. So I think she is not. I think
So it's not
De-
flip, it's stages of grief. That is more
yeah,
accurate. Yeah.
I think Debbie is not a mirror of Toad. I think she is kind of like she's her own. She's doing her own thing, and she's just
Okay.
like this guy has
Well,
a
that's what I
cool
said. They
car.
can sometimes feel. I don't think all of them are perfect mirrors, but I
Yeah,
think
and
I think there's enough
she's a
females that
foil
aren't.
in a lot of
Yeah. Okay.
ways because she like at one point when he comes over and he's like, "Can I borrow a buck?" Because he's gotten ripped off, and she's like,
Oh
"A
my God.
girl's
She's
not
like,
supposed to pay,"
I
and then she
cannot
gives,
believe I'm doing this, and she gets it
and then
anyway.
and then later on, there's a moment and you think she's leaving him because she wants a ride home or whatever, and she goes over to the other guys, and then she quickly turns around and is like, "Yeah, she's like, I'm not gonna leave you. Like I'm just And she, so like, I think that I think the women are fairly well defined in this. I mean, it doesn't pass the Bechdel test, but it's not like, I think that given given that this is written by George Lucas, like this is a pretty well defined when you think about,
It is.
you mentioned at the beginning of this, like this isn't a at the very beginning of the episode, you said this isn't a sci-fi movie, which is weird. That was part of the stipulation for Francis Ford Coppola was you need to prove to
You're
me
not making a sci-fi film.
no, he was like, you need to prove to me that you can make something that isn't sci-fi. Like he's
No,
like,
no,
I
no.
will.
That's what I meant. One of his
Yeah,
is you're not making a sci-fi film because
right,
THX 1138 is literally that.
right. He made that, and that was like an expansion of his student short film, and Francis Ford Coppola is like, I will get you a seat at the director's table, like get you in there, like in a way that's bigger than like that's
Yeah.
more studio based than that. But you gotta.
But you're not making a sci-fi
We're not
film.
doing sci-fi. You need to like come with something different. And I think Star Wars was already like in his head at that point. Like I think he already had some ideas. So that's kind of why this was like I can do some. I don't. It doesn't have to be THX 1138 Star Wars. It can be something else. And in order to get Francis Ford Coppola on board, and so that again. Curbing his George Lucas ness.
Is that like the nostalgia is powerful, but it's still nostalgia for a very specific, I think, pretty short time of American history right before the Vietnam War really starts and the assassination of one of our most powerful people in our country. That up until that moment, there was this general feeling of just levity and this ability that these teenagers can even experience this. Whereas a year later, what what was our 9/11 attack was their JFK assassination. Like it was the first US got grabbed by California and the Atlantic Ocean and just shaken like this. Like that's really the first to me the first time that those kids would have ever experienced that.
And you're right about that. This is a really interesting period of maybe 5 years or less
Yeah,
because
almost
you've
less.
got the hope of the JFK early JFK administration without the downside of him being killed. Martin Luther King hasn't been killed yet. Malcolm X hasn't been killed
Oh, the
yet.
riots. Yeah.
All that stuff hasn't happened yet.
Yep.
And Vietnam is happening, but we're not at that like draft level yet. That comes a couple years
No, no, because
later.
Vietnam
We're
started even technically before this even took place,
right. We're
but not in
in
the way that the U.S. was really involved in it. Yeah.
exactly. And so you have all of that. But you also have the civil rights movement has kicked off because by 1962
You know,
the
I just
civil
thought,
rights
how many
movement.
black people are in this movie?
Well, that's what I'm going to get to in a second. So the civil rights movement starts in 1955, roughly, with the killing of Emmett Till, and there's a couple others that have things that happen in that year. So 55, this is 7 years later, and and civil rights, experience different in different places. Um, we're from the Northeast. That was like a totally different thing than it was in the South. But California was probably its own separate thing too, right? Like, and so you see in the dance during the like when they're doing the tunnel of people, and then every couple like dances down the tunnel. There is a black couple, so that means that
Oh, okay.
there is integration at that school to whatever extent. Now, it's the only black people that I think we see on
I
screen
was going
that
to say,
I'm aware
I
of at
really think
all.
it's the only, yeah.
There's also like a fair amount of Hispanic. The pharaohs are
I was about to say,
whatever to
there's the
whatever
one
degree.
pharaoh that appears Hispanic, but outside
Right.
of that, it's pretty much a white movie. Pretty
Right.
much.
But then Carol also says that, because Wolfman Jack is this like mystery guy that nobody really knows who he is or what he, there's an aura to him, and she says, I love listening to him, even though my mom wouldn't let me listen to him because he's a Negro.
That's
And
right. Yeah, yeah.
she says, and which we find out that he isn't, but like there is that level of like, and I think that happened probably with after Elvis and a lot of that, a lot of
Oh, yeah.
where white kids are into black music, like black radio and black,
Black
white
culture.
white kids are into black culture, and that starts probably at the same time as the civil rights movement. Probably in some ways it probably helped the civil rights movement, even
Oh,
though
yeah.
like I don't want to like give white kids credit, but like there is some of that. So like, but from George Lucas' perspective, and again, he grew up in California, in Northern California, so like, who knows? I don't know what that time is like, because the LA is a very different race relations situation.
Yeah.
The South is very different. The Northeast is a different, so I don't know, but we see black people, and there's no real hubbub about it, and and we see this generational thing of my mom doesn't like it, wouldn't let me listen to him because she thinks because he's black, and then but Carol has no problem with it, and if and she and John doesn't say he's not black, or oh, I didn't know he's black. There's no like pushback, so it's fair to assume that a
True.
lot of these people are assuming he's black, and they all love him, right? So
Yep.
like they're all young though, and so like that's part of that dynamic is the generation. So like there is this weird like hopefulness of it with the
Hmm.
realization, and the realization comes in that like John dies in Vietnam. uh um Toad goes missing in action in Vietnam,
Yep.
kind of thing that goes on. But that balances that hope and realism of like this during this time period. We thought everything was going to be fine. We were like, we've just elected John F. Kennedy, and the
Our
world is
first
changing.
cool president.
The world is changing, and it's going to be great. It's going to be rainbows and puppies forever. Especially if you're a white kid who likes black culture and is seeing the civil rights movement happening and is like, cool, like
Yeah.
you're like for that
Cool. The music isn't going to suck anymore.
for that window of time, there was that whether it was real or not real, there was that like sense of it's all going to be great. And you know, and a lot of things happen that, like, if they hadn't happened, maybe it would have gone differently, and maybe we would be in a, you
Yeah.
know, maybe
Well,
we
and
wouldn't
it
have
really
ended
is
up
like this. You're right.
in Vietnam the
It,
way we did. Maybe if JFK had gotten that second term, or if RFK had gotten elected, RFK Senior had gotten elected in '68. Like, there's all kinds of things in here that could have made that dream, that hope, that maybe not a real thing that happened, but closer to what ended up coming
okay,
about. You
closer,
know,
and there
it
really
gets
is like,
derailed. Like, that dream
yeah,
gets derailed.
it's really this much time. Like, you're
Yeah,
right. It is such a small little slice of American history that this is all like condensed
yeah.
down into one night. And I like my denouement hits right on the thing you were saying. I the ending of this movie, speaking of nostalgia and honesty, this is reframing the entire film, because up until then everything really does feel hopeful.
Hmm.
Hopeful is a great one word encapsulation for all of these characters, despite Toad's rough night,
Hmm.
despite Bolander's interactions with his girlfriend, despite Kurt's gang initiation night. He still gets on the prop plane, which I thought was interesting, even though jets were already there. The ending reframes the whole movie. Until then, it feels hopeful, loose, funny, warm, endearing, even. And then it completely crushes down that this is real life.
Hmm.
And without that ending, this film could have been the classic fan service, boomer bait kind of film where wasn't it great back then?
Hmm.
Look at how cool everything was. There was no trans kids. There was no bad taxes. There was no crazy stuff happening on our streets and in the schools. Look, there's not a single black person.
With
There's no crime. And then
or look, there
this
were black people and they were treated great. The one black
oh,
person
even
we
better.
the
Yeah, the one
like
black
it
person in the film, they were
without
dancing among
without
the white kids.
without that tag at the end about two of the four characters dying or going
In a
MIA
war,
in in
specifically two of the
in
four characters dying in a
in a
conflict,
boondoggle of a
and
war. Yeah.
yeah, in a boondoggle,
It
and
but like
one of them returning back to the exact place they started.
right. But without that little like 10-second clip at the end, this movie, you're
Yeah.
right, is like almost propaganda to, like, you know, there's the question when people say make America great again, they're like, when was America great? What's this magical time you talk about? This movie would have been that
This.
if
Yep.
if that tag isn't on there. If this would have
Yep.
been the, like, look, everything's great. They're nice to the, like, one black person. They idolize the guy they think is a black person.
They're
Like,
not
it
worried
has
about
all
buying gas.
right. And gas prices are clearly cheap. Like, it is, you know, and
It's boomer
you're,
bait.
yeah, I mean, it's the great America of mythology, without that tag, and that tag recontextualized, like, that tag makes it propaganda proof, essentially, in
And what I
that
like
form
about
of
it,
propaganda.
yeah, and what I like about it is it shows his ability as a writer to nail a theme
Hmm.
and have it done in a way that doesn't feel like cheap or preachy.
Yeah,
Because seriously, I've seen some of those. What are those called when they do endings like that?
I,
It's
I,
when
I
it's text like that.
yeah, I know what you're talking about,
There's
but
a
I don't
name
know.
for it.
I don't know what the name is.
So oftentimes at the end of movies, those are there to make you feel good. The
Yeah,
usual purpose of those is positive happiness, especially on a film that is more down and sad.
yeah,
This is a film that's happy, go lucky, big, hopeful. And
yeah,
then two of these dudes
yeah,
died in one of
yeah.
the worst wars the US got involved with. One of them, I like your framing, draft dodges to Canada.
I
And
don't
the
know that that's
only
what it
one who,
was. I
But
don't
no,
know
no,
that
but I
what,
love
but
the framing we're
that
going with it,
they specifically say Canada, which makes me think it's a draft dodge.
right?
Um,
And then the only other one who wasn't sure he was leaving because he wasn't Kurt. He's a completely different character that now thinks he's going to stay, comes back and is an insurance agent
yeah,
in the
I
same
think
town he left. Like,
yeah,
like the four of them. By the way, I also like in Lucas writing fashion, that is not the outcome you would have thought those four characters had.
no,
Like
and
you
to
would
your
have
point
wanted to
about
see, ooh, Milner died in a car accident, and Toad got with the blonde. Like that's
yeah,
what you want to see there. But no, no, not what
no,
happened.
to your point, I think that there is like there every time you see those, or most of the times you see those in the movies, it is either to like give you like some hope, or it's like you just spent an hour and a half with these characters and you're probably wondering what happens. And so like we're gonna give you the trajectory that you kind of expected with a little tweak, like, oh, they actually became governor, or like for real
I
this time.
recommend this film.
I recommend this film. If you I, I would have like I wish that Sarah and Logan had watched it. I think that they would have really liked it.
Yeah, my wife thought it was cool.
This
She
movie
did.
was
She'd never
great.
seen it.
I really was like, is this going to be good at the beginning? And then it's great. It was
He
really
said that
fun.
because I picked it.
No, I said it the first 5 to 10 minutes of the movie. I was like, is this gonna just be rambly, or is there a point to it? I thought I really liked this. I gave okay. So we'll get on to scores for fun and watchability. We gave it the same score.
Yeah,
It's an 8. It's a really like
easy eight.
enjoyable movie. There is funny moments. There's deep moments. There's the only real downer is the last 30 seconds or 10 seconds.
Yeah. Well, you even
Like
get to see characters turn.
you get there's
You get to see
character
characters
development.
change and develop. I like it.
Yeah, it's like really really fun and watchable. As far as quality, we have a differing score. I'm gonna go first because I gave it the higher score, and
Mhm.
and so I already said that a big thing with me for me was the lighting. So I'm giving it an 8, and I'm giving it an 8 because I think that the lighting, considering the fact that it was almost all night shots or all day for night. There's some that's clearly day for night, but there's also some that seem to be genuine night shots.
Genuine night. Yeah, I
Which I
agree with
think
that.
had to be. I don't think you could shoot. You can't shoot the downtown stuff with all the street lamps day for night. You had to shoot that actual nighttime.
To get the
The
shadows and everything to look correct. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I wanted to get the halation, the lights and the neon and all that stuff. Otherwise, like none
Against
of
the
that's
black sky. Yeah.
right. You had to get it in an actual darkness. So like that, and I think that those are the ones that work best. The one thing that so this movie's 35 millimeter. I looked because I wondered if it was 16 millimeter because when you look at other 1973 movies shot on film, and again, so much of it's shot at nighttime, so that does affect things. There's like a blue ring around all the street lamps of the halation of and there's so much there that I'm like, I don't know, is this the digital process? Is this where did this come in? But there was inconsistency. For sure there was inconsistency in the lighting, and so that's why I can't give it a 9 or a 10 because it is somewhat noticeable. There are moments where I'm like, oh, is it almost morning? And then we go to another scene and it's clearly not almost morning in. And so like those, like when they're at the lake or at the river or whatever that body of water is supposed to be, when Toad and his girlfriend are there, that could be like just before dawn. And if you told me that
Yeah.
was just before dawn, but so much happens after in the darkness, and and it and like there would be it doesn't look like moonlight. It looks like sun's about to break, like
It really does. And
and so
what you
those are
just
the moments where I'm like, okay, that's just taking me out of it slightly when we're
yeah.
jumping around that way.
So
Okay.
what you just mentioned is why my score is the lower one, but it's only a 7 instead of an 8. And I am not a filmmaker, so for me, I don't I don't immediately think of film craft with the lighting. I think of scene consistency with the lighting.
Hmm.
But the lighting is what stood out. So when you were mentioning when Toad's down at the body of water trying to mix his booze into those cokes, which he was way too exacting being with, like he was eyeing them to try to make sure they were the same. Nothing that I have ever tried to do, ever. Of course, I'm not picky or specific about anything that I do. Um, the fact that it looked like it was just about to be morning, like it's that super flat white light, and then they're back in the car and it's clearly dark and there's a shadow from the car roof that's possibly from the sun and or a street lamp. That scene consistency is what I think of quality being like, come on, you're George Lucas with Coppola. You couldn't like figure that out. And
They
then
probably don't have the budget. And if I'm being honest with you,
because the budget was a little low. Yeah.
those ones are probably day for night, and the stuff in downtown has to be night for night because of all the lighting problems. But you don't have that problem out in the countryside, and so the day for night that's probably why it looks like that. And so, like, I understand the
Okay.
process. It's probably a budgetary thing, and they're probably they're like, well, back then it was standard practice to shoot day for night. Unless you were in this like neon and lights, glare,
Okay.
like you can't do that.
Unless
So,
you had, unless you had light in the scene already, right?
So I think that
So
like that is probably just a fault of the times and the budget.
yeah,
Um,
my other reason for 7 and not 8 is sound consistency, and I'll explain it. Wolfman Jack is so difficult to understand sometimes, and I know it's intentional because he has that specific accent and voice that he puts on when he's broadcasting that he clearly doesn't have when he's in the studio talking to Kurt. But without the subtitles on, you really do miss a lot of the things that he says and the gags that he's doing with these people. And again, I think that may have been intentional because it's supposed to sound like it's coming from a cheap car stereo in the 60s. It's supposed to sound tinny and crushed and with no headroom, right? And again, stylistic. But if Wolfman Jack
I
isn't
really
just
hope
being
our audio is
background
good this
audio,
episode, so that nobody's like, "Oh, they're talking about audio with this audio quality."
right? So, and we spoke about getting me a mic, and yeah. Um, so there was so many scenarios where I thought the audio balance. I'm not saying quality, but it's like the balance of it seems a little off. And there are some times when the vehicle sounds are too low or too high in the mix. And again,
Mhm.
I imagine that was intentional. And the reason I'm pointing it out audio wise is because it might not match for music purposes, for music production, because that's the part of audio that I understand better. You have like that threshold that is in a song or when you're producing, you have like this median that you want everything to sort of be just above and below. And then as soon as you have something that's way below in the mix or way above in the mix, it's super obvious. And it can take you out of a scene when we're talking about film. In music, it's often like, ooh, it's a stylistic choice. I pushed the drums way up because I wanted you to hear that snare. Or I crushed the bass guitar down because it's so boomy and clangy on the frets. I don't want that ringing noise to hit that part of the frequency range and like get in your ear too much and cause sibilance. So the audio not being as consistent might have been stylistic.
And I'm excited to talk about this for next week. First of all, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. You can go on patreon.com. I'll have that below. If you want to see episodes early, I recommend going there and just even subscribing for free if you want, because you can get updates on what's coming. But yeah, so that's the first thing. Second thing is, what are we watching next week? And you folks may not know this. This is the first time Alex doesn't know what I'm about to say.
I do not know. I even went to our spreadsheet. I'm like, wait, I don't know what it is. Shit. Okay.
He doesn't know. And I was like, I'm scrolling right now. A minute ago I pulled it up. I'm scrolling HBO just to make sure there's nothing I want to pick over it, but I'm like 99% sure this is what I wanted to pick, and I am confirmed. The movie is called If I Had Legs, I Would Kick You. It is from 2025. And I want to watch it, and so we're gonna watch it. It was an Academy Award nominee last year for Rose Byrne, and it's supposed to be great. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to see our episodes early, check us out on Patreon. Where the link's down below, and it's pretty cheap. So, all right, I want to,
$26 for the whole year.
yeah.
All episodes together. In fact, because we're doing some catch-aheads, you'd get this one before a lot of people do.
Yeah.